Hello and welcome to Padre's Corner. It's the Twitch show where we talk about pretty much anything we want to talk about. I'm your host, Father Robert Ballas here, Padre SJ, in the Twit TV chat room. And for the next hour or so, we're just going to take you through some of the topics that I think fell through the cracks of our coverage here at the Twit TV network. Now, let me make it clear. Right now, this is not an official Twitch show. This is something that we just do because the geeks and the gals of Twit TV, the Twit Army, that's you out there, deserve a little something, and that's what we're going to do. So let's kick it off with a little bit of, I'd say, testosterone. Now, let me ask you this. If you're going to die, and we're all going to die, wouldn't you rather die under a train? Well, yeah, if you're in South Africa, that's probably what you're going to be doing. Here is a little story that was brought to us by the good people over at MN Chic, talking about how in South Africa there is this trend for people to do what's called train surfing or staff riding. Now, it involves people who are thrill seekers climbing to the tops and the bottoms of trains, moving at breakneck speeds. Now, with the deadly tracks below and 3,000-volt cables above, these staff riders risk electrocution, decapitation, dismemberment, and death, all for the thrill of the ride. Now, there is a mini documentary on this page if you go over to MN Chic. It was done by Marco Cassino, and it takes a look at the lives of these thrill seekers. It really does sound crazy. I mean, we look at something like that. People jumping on the tops of trains, people getting electrocuted, people losing limbs simply for the thrill of riding on the top of or the bottom of a train. But honestly, ask yourself, how much crazier is that than people who go bungee jumping or who jump off of tall buildings or who even jump out of planes? I mean, take a look at this footage. This footage is kind of crazy when you look at what they're willing to do, what they're willing to risk for the thrill of as we see, hanging off the side of a locomotive. It seems that this kind of thrill is the low end of skydiving. It's what a poor person can actually access, and therefore it's what they do. I, for one, think it's crazy, but I'm not going to judge them because then again, I think I live a pretty decent life. All right, let's get past the staff riding and talk about something that I hold near and dear to my heart. Vroom, vroom. That's right, F1 racing. I've really gotten into F1 racing this season. I kind of fell out of it for a few years because it seemed to be if you had money, you won, and if you don't have money, you don't. But they changed that all this year with changes to the rules that award efficiency. Now, this season, we've got 22 cars running in the Formula One series, all running 1.6-liter turbocharged V6 engines with hybrid energy recovery systems. However, what we've seen in this early season is that Mercedes is dominating the field. I mean, they're just blowing everybody out. Now, with everyone with the same engine, pretty much the same setup, that shouldn't be happening. But they took a new approach to an old enhancement, and they've blown it out the door. Now, what might that be? Turbocharging, supercharging. Now, you may have heard about this. When we talk about turbocharging or supercharging, we are talking about the different ways to add boost into an engine. An engine runs on air. You might think it runs on fuel, but it's really the air. It needs the oxygen in the air in order to create power. Without air, no oxygen. No oxygen, no detonation. No detonation, no power. No thrust, no go, no vroom, vroom, vroom. What Mercedes has done is they've taken a new look at how we actually turbocharge engine. Now, in order to do this, let's take a quick step back and let's talk about the different ways to get boost into your engine. That's getting more air into your cylinders, into the combustion chamber so you can get more power. There's traditionally been two ways to increase the amount of air that flows through your engine. The first is called supercharging. Now, supercharging was really popular way back when you saw those blowers on the tops of cars. You remember the hot rods. The idea is you hook up a pulley to the crankshaft, which is connected to a compressor. That compressor sucks in air and forces it down into the engine, which increases the amount of boost you can get, which increases the amount of thrust you can get with each explosion. Now, superchargers are great because when you hit the gas, it turns the crankshaft, which also increases the boost. So you get very little what's called lag. There's no turbo lag. When you push down, you get your power. On the con side, what happens with a supercharger is that you rob the engine of some of the horsepower that should be going to the transmission and then to the wheels. Now, the other way to get boost to your engine has been called supercharging. Supercharging takes a slightly different approach. It still uses a compressor, which is just a fan. It's a fancy way of saying a fan, but it's hooked up directly to a turbine, and that turbine is driven by the hot exhaust gases coming off your engine. They figured rather than robbing the crankshaft of some of the rotary energy going down into the transmission, why not take the exhaust gases, which are already just waste products, and use it to turn a turbine, which will then spin a compressor, which will then increase your boost. Great idea, very efficient. The problem is something that they call the turbo hole or turbo lag, and that is when you put your foot down, it takes a while before that compressor will actually spin up because the turbine takes time to spin up. And so there's a momentary pause before foot to thrust. Does that make sense? That's what you get in a turbocharger. Now, in Formula One, they've done something very interesting with the technology to get away from that lag. They have used a hybrid energy recovery system, which allows a small electric motor to spin up that compressor before the turbine spins all the way up, which means it's removed most of the lag, but there's still a problem. And that is when you put those hot exhaust gases so close to that turbine, you're going to heat up the air that's going into the engine. And hot air is bad. It's not as dense as cold air. And if it's too hot, you will have what's called premature detonation, which is really, really, really bad. So now that we know all that, now that we've had our little engineering lesson, what is Mercedes doing that is different, that makes them such a threat on the track? They're doing a little something to the turbocharger. What they've done is they've pulled the turbine away from the compressor. They've put the compressor next to the engine, and they've put the turbine in the back of the car and connected the two with a very flexible shaft. What this means is that they can, along with the hybrid energy system, get all the power, all the efficiency of using the waste gases, but not heat up the air and not have a turbo lag. It's a fantastic way to do racing, and I'm sure that all the other teams are going to follow suit. More than that, this kind of technology could make its way into the consumer market, and the next time you talk about a turbo, it might be something sticking out your backside. Now, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the Heartbleed bug. You've probably heard about it. It's been in the news. People are freaking out about what it means for them. And I want to give you a good in-English explanation of what it is and how we defeat it. But before we do that, I think with all this testosterone, talking about train riding, staff riding, and turbochargers, it's time for a dosage of cute.
This is 1-week-old Gucci. She's a mini pin-pom mix, and she's so cute. She's like a light brown color. Her eyes are still closed, but puppy Gucci has great reflexes. Look, come on, puppy. Give it the reflexes. Oh, look at this. Oh, how cute is that? Oh. Oh. Yes, little Gucci. And her ears still haven't fully opened either, but they're getting fuzzy. Yes. Oh, so cute. Can we try the reflexes again? Let's try. Oh, look at the reflexes. Oh, look at... so cute. Okay, I'll stop now. Okay, baby Gucci. Okay, all right, go back to bed.
All right, that was a little too cute, but let's get away from that. We want to talk all about the heartbeat bug, the heartbleed, the heartache, whatever you want to call it. There has been a lot of reporting in the tech press the last couple of days about a fatal flaw in OpenSSL, but honestly, I've been very disappointed in the explanations. They are all very technical. They are all very thorough, but the problem is most normal people really don't understand other than, yeah, it's bad. We don't want OpenSSL. We don't want the heartbleed. We don't want this bug that could possibly open up our most private files and sessions to an intruder. But they don't know how it works because there has been no real good in-English explanation of what's going on. That's what I want to give you in this little corner of Padre's Rant. All right. So when we talk about the heartbeat, what we're talking about is a payload. It's a signal from the computer connected to a server. So from the client to to the server. Because when I have that connection, you know that little lock that you get in the upper corner of your browser that tells you that your connection is secure? Remember all those years ago, people were saying people need to use encrypted communications. They need to stop sending things in the clear. Well, we were talking about using SSL, Secure Sockets Layer, and its successor. The problem is the way that OpenSSL, which is a specific type of encryption, it was created by the Open Source Consortium, verifies what's called the heartbeat. Now, what is the heartbeat? The heartbeat is this. Once I have that session, that communication, that encrypted tunnel between 2 points, you have to keep it alive. Because imagine, you're not always using that communication stream. You're not always connected to that server. Sometimes you're just sitting there reading. Sometimes you're just watching a video. You need a way to pulse the server and tell it, I'm still connected. So what they came up with was this ingenious idea of the heartbeat. Every once in a while, the client computer will send out a heartbeat payload. It essentially says, hey, I'm still here. Send me back this thing I'm sending to you. And it sends a very small payload. It could be something like gibberish, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to say, send me back 1, 2, 3, 4. That 1, 2, 3, 4 gets to the server, and the server says, I'm still here. I'm going to keep the connection alive. I'm going to send back this payload 1, 2, 3, 4. The client gets 1, 2, 3, 4, and both the client and the server now know everything is cool, everything is copacetic, the connection will be kept alive, and it hasn't been compromised. Okay, that's all good. That's well and good. That's the way it's supposed to work. The problem is the way that it was implemented in OpenSSL. You see, along with that heartbeat, there's a small message that says, I'm sending you a payload, and the payload is this size. Now, in all other implementations of SSL, the ones that Microsoft uses, the one that Apple uses, that size is checked against the actual payload. So if my computer says, I am sending you a payload of 4 bytes, and here are the 4 bytes. This is what it spells out. The server, when it receives that heartbeat, will say, okay, how much data did you send me, and how much did you say you wanted back? It will check the 2 numbers. It will make sure the 2 numbers match up before it sends the heartbeat back saying, I'm still cool, we're still connected. In OpenSSL, they never wrote a piece of code to check the 2, which means I can send a payload consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4, which is just 4 bits, that's half a byte. But in the heartbeat packet, I could say, I'm sending you 64,000 bytes. Send me 64,000 bytes back. Because the server only received a payload of 4 bits, half a byte, it's now going to send me 63.5 kilobytes of data back to me. Who should not have received that. Actually, the math is wrong on that. It's 63 point blah, blah, blah bytes. Now, the problem with that is when you overflow like that, you're going to be sending back data from the memory of the server that you shouldn't be able to see. And what's stored inside that memory? Stored inside that memory are the things like the key, the encryption key, the whatever usernames and passwords might be floating around through the memory. And I can continue doing this heartbreak thing, this heart leak, this heart bleed, until I have the entire memory buffer. Now, why is that bad? That's bad because if I, an attacker, figure out how to use that to get the encryption key, to get your certificate, I can now attack you. Now, how does the attack work? All right, let me break this down into English again. In a regular connection, my computer will connect to, say, the server of Facebook. Server Facebook has a certificate. It's an encryption key that tells me when I go there, this is Facebook, you're all good. It gives me the little lock that says, yeah, do whatever you want. We're encrypted, we're secure. If I have attacked the servers of Facebook and I have gotten their encryption key, I've gotten their certificate, I can now put myself in the middle of that communication, and your computer will be talking to me. I'll be passing it on to Facebook, but both to Facebook and to you, it looks like you've got a direct connection. And because I have your certificate, because I have your encryption key, I can open and read absolutely everything you're passing through. That's your username. That's your password. That's any messages that you may send that you think are encrypted. That's what scares people out about the Heartbleed bug. That's why it is so freaky, because it makes an attack like that impossible to trace. We don't log the heartbeat packets, which means there's no way to check to see if the communications has been compromised. All right, So now that we know how it works, and now that we know how people have attacked, what does that mean for us? Logically, it means that we can't trust the internet. Right now, because 2/3 of the internet may be running on OpenSSL, because they may be using that exploited package, because they may have been using that for 2 years, and because people may have been exploiting this for 2 years, it means that essentially every single bit of communications that we have sent across the internet for the last 2 years and forward are open to prying eyes. We have to assume that. As a security person, I'm telling you right now, you have to assume that you have no privacy. You have to assume that people have gotten your usernames and your passwords. You have to assume that at some point you ran through a exploited system and that information is no longer private. Okay, now, so people are saying, oh, okay, just change your usernames and your passwords, right? Or just make sure that you're using different credentials for every server. That's a start, but here's the problem. We don't know when all the servers will be patched. In fact, more likely than not, the servers will never all be patched. That's the way that the internet works. There is no really good way, unless you're looking really closely, to know which servers have been compromised, which services have been exploited, which information has been claimed. In fact, from now on, even if you were to change all your usernames and passwords, there's still a good chance that you're going to use a server that still has the bug, that will still be exploited, that is still compromised. And folks, that's just scary. So what's in for the future? How do we proceed from here? What are the steps that we have to take? Well, they're already taking it. If you look around the interwebs, you're going to see all these stories about how people have been freaking out. People have been moving over to servers that have not been exploited. They've been trying to build up a database of all these services like Facebook and Yahoo and Microsoft that have been clear. But unfortunately, there is no real good comprehensive list. Again, there are a lot of people who are saying, look, don't spread FUD, don't spare fear. But this is the most incredible. This is the most damaging. This is the most difficult to correct bug we've ever had on the internet. Not just because of the severity of the bug, but because it has been in circulation for such a long time, and we don't know who has been using it. And folks, when we don't know, that's when it gets really, really scary. Now, coming right up, we've got an old favorite, one of my personal favorite people on the internet, an internet star, Mr. Brian Brushwood. He'll be coming to break down the knowledge of the weak stories. And there's really no one I would prefer to do it with, because that man is as bright as a sun tied to a potato clock with a lemon wedge, whatever that might mean. But before we do that, let's take a look at some graphic violence.
Look, I'm sorry, man. I'm not very good at basketball. It's cool. What?
That was our good friends over at Corridor Digital. Now, you've seen me play Corridor Digitals, I believe, for the last 8 weeks. They're just a great group of guys. And beyond that, they're my inspiration for creating creative stuff, not just live content, not just talking heads. They're the ones who really showed us what it could be like to create content without a big Hollywood studio. If you get a chance, drop by their channel. In fact, please, tonight, if you're watching the show, jump onto their Twitter channel at Corridor Digital and tweet them. Tell them that you saw them on Padre's Corner and tell them that you love their stuff. They're going to be on the show as guests in just a while, but, you know, we want to shout out and tell them thank you. Thank you for being part of the Twit experience. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to the show really someone who needs no introduction. He is the man who eats fire. He is the one who jams nails into his head. He is the one, the only, the original Brian Brushwood. Brian, thank you so very much for coming on to the show.
I want to point out that you say the one, the only. There is one other Brian Brushwood in the entire world. He's a computer programmer in Australia. And if you go to his Google Plus page, he's like, no, the other Brian Brushwood.
We will kill him. Brian.
Running around with the other Brian.
Seriously, it is great to see you. You know, one of the things that you've done since you've left the Twit TV network, and let's say you left on very good terms, you've started up Diamond Club TV, you've started up Night Attack, and I got to tell you, it's gone like gangbusters. It's an incredible piece of creative explosion, and I got to say, I do want to take some time to show people a little clip of Night Attack. Now, we had to pass this through the Twit censors to make sure that it was okay to be on the stream. So here we go with Night Attack on Twit TV.
It's Justin Robert Young. What's going on, JRY? Ooh, the mom and dad robot.
Yeah, that's all we could play.
I'm glad that much made it through, man.
Now, here's the cool thing about that. When I was thinking about that little bit, I was like, okay, so what we got to do is we got to get one of their episodes and let's chop something and make it so that they swore in between. I didn't have to make it up. There was literally an F-bomb right before and right after that clip.
Well, and what's funny is Bonnie was really concerned. She was like, oh, I'm just concerned that now that you guys are going to be all, you know, you're just going to, everything will be F this, F that. I'm like, no, look, we learned how to not swear at NSFW. And then every episode, Bonnie would be like, yeah, that episode was funnier than the last episode. I was like, yeah, we cursed quite a bit more than the previous episode. And it really, I hope it hasn't driven, apparently it hasn't driven anyone off. People seem to really like it. So now that, ironically, that we're not NSFW, we can finally be NSFW.
Yeah, I got to say, it's a lot of fun to watch. And I'd say like the first episode, you were still kind of in NSFW mode, but since then you figured out, oh no, we're Night Attack. Yeah, we can do what we want. Oh, I got to say, don't tell me if you know, but whoever draws the doodles for your opens,
I still don't know.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Experiment Nitrate, the mystery, the legend. We've gotten only hints and rumors as to who Spearmint Nitrate actually is. There's conspiracy theories. I love it. I love the fact that there's drama within drama and all this stuff.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Now, before we get into the tech, is there anything you want to tell the good folks? It's been a while. You've been away from Twit TV. They missed you.
I feel bad because everyone's like, "Oh, are you leaving Twit?" I'm like, "I'm not leaving Twit. We're just not doing that show anymore." And then I for like 4 weeks, I haven't come back on to be on This Week in Tech or anything, and that's on me. So I'm glad that it worked out that that you had need for somebody to slum with this evening. But the only thing that you've been missing in my life has been trying to get back in shape. Was going really well until I stepped into a rabbit hole yesterday and thought I had fractured my ankle. Turns out it was just a severe sprain. I had this like balloon-sized grapefruit, freaking swelling. So now I'm on crutches for a week. That's what's up with me. So I'm playing a hell of a lot of Skyrim, kicking it 2011-12 style.
Now, just to show the folks that you're not lying, do you want to show your badge of honor, your injury?
You want me to bust out my filthy foot?
There we go. There we go.
There.
Oh man.
There you go.
You know, Brian, this is why we can't have good things.
I know. Well, I don't know. I felt so betrayed too because it was like it was. Well, okay. So the reason it happened is because I cut across a ditch. There was tall grass and it looked level, and I stepped in it, and it just went. You know, you get that panic as it goes a full 6 inches lower than it's supposed to, and then like you feel the twang or whatever. So I called Bonnie, and I'm literally laying in the ditch in front of the Mexican food restaurant. And I'm like, I'm over at Trudy's. I'm over at Trudy's. And so she comes over, and I watch her blow past me, pull into the Mexican food restaurant, and it's like, I don't see you. You're not here. And I'm like, no, I'm laying in the freaking ditch. You just blew past. Please come and get me to take me to the ER. So anyway, we're currently betting how much the ER visit is going to take. Like the over-under is like $1,500 or something.
Yeah, minimum. Well, it was like $800 just for a doctor to see you. So everything else is going to. Now you do realize you have that story now that most people wish they had. So I was lying in a ditch.
Yes.
There's a bit. There you go.
No, Bonnie felt terrible. But in fact, we're at this very moment, we are experiencing an asynchronous parallel date, by which I mean Monday morning, because I wanted to be able to talk about it on Cord Killers. I went and saw Captain America alone, and now that the kids are in bed, Bonnie is going to go see Captain America alone.
Oh, come on. No.
We'll talk about how much we both enjoyed it.
Okay, so but without spoiling it, did you actually enjoy it?
I did. I liked it a lot. It wasn't it swung wildly from me being thrilled and surprised by seeing something new and innovative to wait, like, no, they can't go with something that predictable. Oh, they did. And then all of a sudden, you know, it's Germans again. Why is it always the Germans and their 1970s aperture science looking technology?
I got to tell you, although there are a lot of blockbuster films on the docket for this summer, in my mind, there's really only a handful of films that you should see. You should see Rio. You should see How to Train Your Dragon. You should see Chef. You should see Jupiter something. I don't even know the name of it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, and of course, what you're talking about is our movie draft, which if you go to draft.diamondclub.tv, draft.diamondclub, there we go. I'm just going to club.tv. This was number one, the first time that we did teams on the movie draft. And wait, or is it nightattack.tv? No, it's Diamond Club.
Oh, it's diamondclub.tv.
Okay, yeah, diamondclub.tv. And so that meant we had to have 12 people on the live stream at once, which was terrifying. And I couldn't believe we actually made it work. And it seemed to flow okay. But also, like, everybody's got like a decent team, except for Amtrekker. I think Amtrekker's screwed.
Yeah, that was so weird because, like, for example, Transformers went for like $45. What happened there? That was ridiculous. If I had known that Transformers was going to go for 45, because I was estimating it was going to go for about 60, 67. That's a $400 million movie over the summer. I would not have bid up Rio.
Well, again, what was weird about this game was a lot of money got spent way early on, and all of a sudden it was a matter of everybody was waiting. For example, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. A bunch of people were holding out for that, but then you realize, like, oh wait, we can't all hold out for our Guardians of the Galaxy, or else we're going to be left with too much money. So I was surprised that it went relatively cheaply as well. I think also, you know, there has been declining returns on that franchise as far as the quality of it, and I think most geeks are burnt out, and we all resent the way Michael Bay insults our intelligence. But that does not mean it's not going to make all the money in the freaking world. And as the co-owner of it with Justin Robert Young, I certainly hope it does. Yeah.
All I have to say is, go Rio. All right. Go Rio.
Oh,
yeah, I want this. Shall we get to the tech stories?
Two, isn't it?
Yeah. And I know sequels, not great, but we'll go with we'll go with what we got. I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by things happening in the background here. Brian, shall we talk a little bit about tech?
Yes, by all means. Take me away. You drive here. I'm just going to comment on the scenery as we travel around.
You can backseat drive all you want. It's all good. So our first story is all about Apple and the Heartbleed bug. This kind of shocked me. At first, I thought it was just a bunch of fanboys who were saying this, but no, it actually came from Apple. Apple has officially said that iOS, OS X, and their key web services are not affected by the Heartbleed security flaw. In fact, there was an Apple person who specifically said that those devices are immune from the Heartbleed bug. And this has blown my mind because nothing could be further from the truth. They're trying to set it up, and I can understand some people in the marketing department saying, hey, we don't use OpenSSL, so we're good, which could also be said about any Microsoft product. But it's completely misleading because it's not about the device, it's about the servers that you connect to. That's where the vulnerability happens.
And in that in that regard, I think it's a very smart way for them to spin it. And they got a lot of traction. A bunch of people still to this very day say there are no viruses on Macs and Macs are totally immune to viruses because, which again, like the real reason there were never any viruses on Macs was because it was too small of an organism for anybody to bother to write one for. It was like, if you're going to maximize your returns, you go with a different OS. I understand why the marketing team would do it. And it's a disingenuous spin for them to take, and I understand why they would. However, the problem is you do not want to be giving people a false sense of security. When the problem is, of course, not with which device you use to access whatever, but it's on the server side. Yeah, I agree. I think it's jaded, disingenuous, short-sighted. If I'm generous, I'm going to say this was a mistake. This was a mix-up. Somebody somewhere in the marketing side of things got the idea like, hey, but we don't use that, do we? Okay, good. Then let's tell everyone so they'll feel better. But again, if you're out there putting out the message effectively, if you have an iPhone, you have nothing to worry about, then that's irresponsible for them to do.
Right. Now, we've got Web0168 in the chat room who's saying, hey, but if you never visit OpenSSL servers, then you are immune. Do you know which servers are OpenSSL? You don't. And you don't even know which ones are running the vulnerable versions of OpenSSL. People don't look that close. If you're a regular user, as you said, I think this is a huge disservice. That Apple should not have come out and said, oh, if you're using this, you're immune from the Heartbleed bug. What they should have said is, your devices are fine, but if you do anything on the internet, you are just as vulnerable to the Heartbleed bug as anyone else using any other platform at any time. To me, I'm security first, and this sounds like, as you said, it was some cheap publicity that they shouldn't have done. They're doing a disservice to their people. I've already had 3 family members who poo-pooed the Heartbleed bug because they said, "Oh, I'm using Apple," and I'm like,
"Oh my God, really?" Like that was their explained justification for why they weren't worried about it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, you know that doesn't make a difference, right? It's not about your device; it's about the other side. And like, no, I saw it. We're immune. I just kind of shrug my shoulders. I go, well, there you go.
Well, and it's weird too because I don't know, this illusion that we all want to have that there is such a thing as real safety. Like, oh, my money's in the bank. It's totally safe. It's totally safe. What year is it? 1920? What, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it 1929? Was when the stock market crashed or whatever? It's or likewise, or even just nowadays. My money is in the safe. It's like if banks get robbed. There is no such thing as perfect security. You can minimize your risk by practicing good hygiene, but that's about all you can expect, right?
Right. Well, at this point, the only thing you can do, and I mean this, tell this to all your friends, the only thing you can do to defend against Heartbleed is to make sure you have different credentials on every server. I mean, that you should have done that already, but I know a lot of people still haven't. I know a lot of people are using the same username and password. Change that right now. Even if you do that, there is still the chance that one of the servers that you're using, one of the services that you're accessing, will be exploited, will not update its OpenSSL version, and therefore your credentials will be compromised. So you can sort of minimize the effect, but right now there's no defense.
Okay, so let me try to represent the dumb everyman, and I'm qualified to do this because I'm a dumb everyman. What are we worried about? So they get your credentials. So they got access to your banking records. It's like, what are they gonna sell my banking records to someone? Is that gonna make somebody money somehow? Or ultimately, yeah, if they were to withdraw money from my account. But again, FDIC is insured up to $100,000 per account. If on your credit cards you have zero liability for anything anyone buys fraudulently on your on your credit cards. It might be a bigger hassle if they got a hold of your PayPal stuff or whatever. Like, what is it that we're all worried about with the capital P privacy? Are there concerns that I'm not thinking of that everyone else is?
Okay, so can I blow your head for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
So I know that as a libertarian, you really don't care about personal privacy or any of that.
Hold on. First of all, that's not true.
Okay, no. Okay, no, take that back. Okay, that was just a jab. All right. No, I know that you're very concerned about that. So let me set up a scenario for you. what if someone who was using this Heartbleed exploit to get these certificates, to get these encryption keys, was then able to run what's called a man-in-the-middle attack? And let's say they were able to run a man-in-the-middle attack on all the traffic running through the eastern seaboard. So they were able to take all that traffic and run it through their own servers before sending it back off to its own direction, its own destination. And they were able to use those compromised keys and services to do everything from read your email, to find out where you're going, to look at your Google searches, to look at all your bank accounts, which may or may not be insured, to access, let's say, all of your cryptocurrency. They could have all the keys for all your Dogecoin, all your Bitcoin. Basically, anything you do on the internet is now plain text for them. Okay, so there's a scenario. Now, here's the mind-blowing part. That may have already happened. Just a few months ago, we found out that a large chunk of the traffic from North America was being forwarded through Norway. Now, they say it was a routing mistake, but it's really strange that this routing mistake forced so much traffic. At the time, we weren't all that concerned because we know that these certificates and the encryption would make sure that they couldn't read any of the data. Even if they somehow figured out a way to do a man-in-the-middle attack, the data should stay secure, especially when there's that volume of data. If they were actively using the Heartbleed exploit to get the certificates and the encryption keys of all those major services, they could have been decrypting in real time with no supercomputer every bit of information and then search through it like a big data Hadoop database.
So I guess at that point, the thing that everyone should be have in their mind is not what does it matter to me? What do I care if someone knows about my bank records or whatever? Maybe you don't qualify, but you should certainly care if millions of people are all there and they can pick and choose the biggest whales to destroy, especially when we're talking about a national security issue at some point, right? The ability to engage in major mayhem, a coordinated cyber warfare attack where all of a sudden, imagine if 100,000 people were locked out of their own financial accounts all at once, what kind of hit that would have on the country. Yeah, all right. Now you got me panicked.
Okay, how about this? Let me give you another one. This is actually far more important. So someone's been spying on the certificates of game servers, and they now own your Skyrim account.
No!
There we go. There it is. There it is. Okay, so, yeah. I mean, I do want to tell people this is bad. This actually really is bad. And I don't think there's been a panic. I think there's been a lack of really clear and concise information. In fact, I'm sure there's people in the chat room who will point out there was an XKCD cartoon that came out this morning, and it is the perfect explanation of Heartbleed. If you have anyone who doesn't understand how it worked, in those, I think it was 5 or 6 panels, they go through exactly how it works. And it's fantastic, it's brilliant, it's very clear, it's very concise. And hopefully if they read that, they'll understand, oh, okay, that's why I should be worried. And honestly, we're going to have to be worried for a while because unless people are using different credentials for every service, we never know if all the servers are going to be patched.
Yeah, and so you mentioned different credentials. I think it's important. You only said it once, but I want to reiterate that it's both the username and the password that need to be different. I mean, yes, of course, it's a terrible idea to have the same password on all of them, but to even have the same name is a bad idea, huh?
Right, yeah. Because, I mean, if I were still black hatting,
if you decided to take on black hatting.
If I was to start doing black hat, all I would need is one instance of your username and your password. And I would try it across every major service, not just banks and credit cards. I would try it on Yahoo and Facebook. I would try to get a match. Right. If you have used it anywhere else, even on a service that is not vulnerable to this OpenSSL bug, I now have access because you've used the same username and password. Yeah. That in the simplest form, that's what's going to happen.
So there are people. Okay, so now you've got the everyday guy totally panicked right now. He's like, oh, I got to change everything. But the only reason that I've used the same login on all of my websites and only 1 or 2 versions of a password is because I can't keep track of it all. I know that writing it down is a terrible idea. What am I to do, Padre?
Hide. I mean, honestly, and that's what scares me. There's really no good advice I can give you right now, other than to say You should have different credentials for every service. There's no fix. It's going to take a really, really long time to fix this. This isn't just a bug. This is a fundamental flaw in one of the ways that we protected ourselves on the internet. And because we have no way to verify that all the servers across the internet have been updated away from this bug, we have to assume that the effects of this exploit are going to be felt for a very, very, very long time. It's one thing to say there's an exploit on my machine. Oh, great, right. OS 10 has a bug, or Windows has a bug, whatever it is. That can affect me. But if I'm now infecting a server, if I'm allowing all that data to become public domain, yeah, it's different. It's different. But, I'm tired of this. This is horrible, Schwood. Let's get away from this Heartbleed because it's just driving me crazy. What do you say we talk about something that's a little softer, a little funnier, a little
cheerful.
Yeah, cheerful. Okay, how about this? Here's something for cheer. Imagine that you're a doctoral student studying at Stanford. Imagine that you're flying from San Francisco to Hawaii for a conference, a doctoral conference, right? You're going to share your work. Now, this is 2005, and you are told at the airport that, we can't let you board. Not only can we not let you board, we're going to handcuff you and we're going to detain you, even though you're in a wheelchair. Now, they're going to handcuff you and detain you even though you're in a wheelchair, and then they're going to let you free, saying that you can't ever get on a plane again, but they're not going to tell you why. They're not going to tell you why. They're not going to tell you if you're on a no-fly list. They're not even going to tell you if a no-fly list exists. They're just going to say, I'm sorry, this is not available for you. So you spend the next couple of years going through the court system, trying to fight the government to say, am I on a no-fly list? And the government is saying, we can't tell you whether or not you're on a no-fly list because that would violate a state secret. Okay, so let's start with that. How do you feel, Brian?
Already not thrilled. Not thrilled, not surprised necessarily. I mean, that's certainly the climate of the post 9/11 world. That's what a bunch of people dealt with. I'm glad it didn't happen to me.
Yeah. Okay, but we are saying it did happen to you. So in this instance, you are a wheelchair-bound female Muslim doctoral student.
Okay.
Okay, so remember, this is you're seeing through these eyes now.
Yes,
right.
I am.
Now, let's fast forward 2 more years. And in those 2 years, you've now brought it through the courts. And now they're kind of admitting, okay, yeah, you were on a no-fly list, even though we're not going to call it a no-fly list. And you even get the agent who put you on the no-fly list to admit, yeah, I totally screwed up. I accidentally checked a box I shouldn't have checked. That's all it was.
Whoa. So I'm on a no-fly list.
Oh, no, because we don't acknowledge that it actually exists. But, yeah, you're on the no-fly list.
Okay, but a person said, yeah, you are not able to fly, and it is a mistake, and it is a mistake that I made.
Yes, but now here we go, though. But I can't admit I made a mistake because that would be a violation of state security.
Oh, geez, of the state secrets. Yeah, this is the problem with any kind of situation where people. It's the law of unintended consequences. You make the ability to protect information because you can hide behind the shield of, call it, national defense or whatever. And meanwhile, it just and of course, when the laws are passed, when the rules are made, when the spying begins, if we're talking about the NSA, it is only with the best of intentions, and it is only going to be used for X, Y, and Z. And we respect the law, we respect privacy, we respect this and that. But that's a very convenient blanket. That steak secret is what I want. I want the secret to a delicious steak. Man, this is I look. If you want to understand why this kind of thing happens, how often it happens, and why it happens in every aspect of society, you got to watch The Wire. The Wire fundamentally changed the way I view the world. Now it doesn't even surprise or weirdly even bother me. I mean, it makes me upset, but it's like there is no other way. This is the natural state of the world. As long as there's power to be given out and the ability to cover up mistakes and save face and juke your own stats and make things look good for you because you're only interested in your own pension, people are going to do it. And they're not even going to do it maliciously or evilly or anything. It's just this giant bureaucratic incompetence. Watch The Wire, watch The Wire, watch The Wire. It will change. It will literally change your life. It will change the way you see everything.
All right. But here's the problem, Brian. We're not done yet.
Oh, geez.
Okay. So these 2 years have passed, and the Attorney General has come out and said, we will not publicly use this declaration of state secret to cover up anything that just might be embarrassing, but we are totally going to cover up what happened to you because it's going to be embarrassing. Now, you fight, not for 2 years, not for 3 years, not for 5 years, but for the next 7 freaking years. It's now 2014, and finally a federal court has come out and overturned the decision of the last 2 federal courts, and they've said, oh, yeah, that's our bad. I'm sorry, yeah, we really screwed that up.
That's amazing. That is astonishing. Well, first of all, to be honest, I don't know which is more astonishing, that it would take this long and that lower courts would support, you know, the obvious cover-up of a mistake, or the fact that there was, to be honest, I'm surprised that anyone ever imbued common sense into this. Anybody finally said, no, yes, that's it. We're cutting it. This was dumb, and no, you're not allowed to do that, and we can't cover it up.
Yeah. Now, okay. Now, it's a good thing that this actually didn't happen, right? Because I think both of us would be absolutely incensed if this was a real case. Oh, wait. No, that's right. It is. It happened to a woman by the name of Rahina Ibrahim. She was a Stanford doctoral student who back in 2005 went through everything we just discussed and just now has had the federal courts say, oh, yeah, you kind of got screwed over. I'm sorry. We're going to clear that off. Now, imagine this is 9 years later, this is $3.8 million worth of lawyer time later that they are finally admitting.
It sounded like you said $3.8 million.
And this is $3.8 million of pro bono lawyer work for her. It doesn't talk about how much the government spent to defend against this. Okay, we don't have those, but I got to say it's probably going to be twice, at least twice, of the $3.84 million. So they spent somewhere in the vicinity of $8 million of your and my money because they didn't want to be embarrassed by a bureaucratic box check.
The good news, Padre, is I'm certain this is an isolated incident. There's nothing systemic about like this kind of thing throughout the government.
You're absolutely right. There's no one else on the no-fly list. There's no one else who's struggling with bureaucracy. This was really just an isolated incident.
Hey man, what are you in support of terrorists? Is that what it is? You just want knock down buildings palooza starring Padre SJ.
Hey Brian, why do you hate America, man? Why do you hate freedom? Huh? Why do you hate babies? Why do you want babies to die, Brian?
Man, you could not pay me enough to get into politics full time, man. No way. I couldn't imagine living in that horrific world.
It's different. Okay, wait. Cleanse. Take a breath.
Good news, right? This is a good news story.
Good news. Good. Yeah, no, and for real this time. Good news. How about this, Brian? You're a gamer, right?
Sure.
I'm a gamer sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Guess what? Gamers aren't as antisocial as we thought they were. Now, right? What do you think of when you think of gamers, Brian?
Well, I think of 5 bros on a couch, high-fiving and playing Halo or whatever.
Well, that's what you think, but, you know, most people think of gamers as these antisocial people who live in their parents' basements, who have really poor hygiene habits, who would be scared if they ever touched the light or another person, or, God forbid, a woman. Well, that's not quite so true. We have this new study coming to us from New Hampshire that talks about how when they examined the gamer lifestyle, when they looked at the people who were most likely thought of antisocial, well, they found that they were actually very highly social people. The researchers observed 20 public gaming events in both Canada and the UK, and the population of those events varied from 20-person LAN parties to 2,500-player convention center competitions. They focused on how the players interacted with one another, and what they found was actually fascinating. They found that the gaming aspect, the technology aspect, actually increased the social interaction. It didn't take over for face-to-face, personable communication. It actually allowed for it. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's the reason, let's take it back, 70 years ago. It's the reason we had sock hops is so that there would be some structure, something to do where the real excuse is to meet and connect with other people. And what the thing is doesn't matter. And yes, football and baseball games has a longer history as being the place that everyone could get together. But I'm kind of glad that we live in a world where the appeal of a sport that destroys the knees of millions of high school students is on its way out. And instead, another e-sport that improves cognitive capacity, high hand coordination, leadership, teamwork, problem solving is more popular. It's all just a MacGuffin for people to meet other people.
It's devil talk, Brian. It's all devil talk.
You go back to your sock hops and your softball games then.
Now, here's something. I really like this point coming out of the research. They found that there was actually a duality that was being formed here. And actually, this time I do really mean this duality. They found that because of the interaction of gamers, there's this new social acceptability of being ruthless in the game, but being a nice person in real life. And people don't see any disconnect between that.
No, well, okay. You of all people know, like back in high school when I don't know, like one of the summers after my senior year or whatever, we'd play basketball most nights, like after 10 p.m. And every so often there would be a church group that would come up, and those were the most miserable games because they would never let anything go. They were so incredibly competitive. All these good boys. Yeah, you haven't run into that? The idea that I don't know. Like I think this predates esports completely and goes back just to sports.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Okay, but let's step away from that and let's talk about something again. Cleansing breath. Okay, now we understand gamers. How about this? Shall we talk about some freaking science?
Freaking science?
Freaking science. I like freaking science. Yeah. Okay, how about this? If you've got a couple of free cells, a couple of spare cells, well, how about this? We've got a vagina for you.
I'm sorry. It sounded like you said, is this your sales pitch? Do you have some spare cells laying around? We've got a vagina for you?
Absolutely. Vagina Paul. No, but seriously, we've got a story here from the New Scientist that's talking about how scientists figured out how to grow vaginas. So let's set the table for this. Okay, so let's set the table for this. We're talking about women who were born without vaginas. Okay, so it's a very specific condition. What they were able to do is they were able to extract cells in a biopsy from the women's genital regions, and then they were able to extrude those cells, grow them around a cylinder shape. Then when it was mature enough, they were able to implant them into the women. And since it was their own cells, since it was their own DNA, they didn't have to worry about organ rejection. And the cylinders slowly dissolved into the body. And now, according to the scientists, these women have fully functional vaginas.
Okay, so first of all, we're not talking about like adult stem cells made from like skin cells or whatever. They're actual genital cells that were growing and cultured, and I assume that they lay them down and I assume like they pay some guy $20 an hour to just drip nutrients on it at all times.
Yeah, they're like hand grown. I mean, actually, I'm glad you picked up on that because my first impression was, well, where do they get stem cells? These patients at the time were like 13, 14-year-olds. How did they find? No, they didn't need the stem cells. They just took cells from the genital region, and they were able to extrude those into a fully functional organ. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Now, here's the crazy part, right? Now, in this case, we have someone with who is biologically female, right, and has what were likely intended to be lady parts were the cells, and so they took them and extruded them or whatever. Think about what this means for people who are trying to get like gender reassignment surgeries, where I wonder, because there are women who have a Y chromosome, like for whatever reason, they're on the cellular level, they're XY, but they have breasts and vaginas and make babies or whatever. So the man-woman dichotomy, he holds up the Diamond Club sign, is not as cut and dried as we all think. Was it like 1 in every 5,000 children, they're unable to determine the sex at birth based looking just at the genitalia. So I wonder if it's, I would love to know at that chromosomal level whether or not somebody could build either a man part from lady cells or a lady part from man cells for people wanting to cross over. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. He really wanted to say hi. That's my bad.
That's fine.
No, I mean, seriously, this is absolutely fascinating. The process that they showed on this webpage, and again, this is from the New Scientist. It's amazing for me to see them do this. Now, they've already done it with a trachea. They've already done it with several body parts that they were able to grow in the lab and then implant. But it's a brand new day, because remember, in the past when we talked about organ transplantation, you had to imagine that you were on a lifetime regimen of anti-rejection drugs, right? You had to suppress your own immune system because otherwise your body would attack the new organ. Well, if it's grown from your cells, if it's your DNA, your body won't attack it, which means that, you know, if we could extrude this technology a little bit, extrude this method a little bit, we could actually start saying we can grow body parts from cells other than stem cells, and that opens up. It's amazing.
And we talked about this on the Weird Things podcast, this kind of thing a lot. You know, if you want to blow your mind, then consider the fact that all of medical science, all of real medical science, there is nonsense for all of humanity, and medical science is essentially 100 years old. Right. Like, you know, we're like 100 years ago, germ theory was still that new iffy thing that I guess seems to work or whatever. When you think about how much we've accomplished in just 100 years, and you think that most of the people listening to this right now have a good 70 years left on the books, you know, or you know, by current demographic trends, there's an awful lot that can happen in the next 70 years. Essentially, I mean, what if the sum total of medical knowledge doubled in the next 70 years? Which likely it won't. It'll triple or quadruple or even more, because it's not just that the knowledge is advancing, but the rate of better knowledge is coming in faster and faster and faster. It almost makes me believe in the singularity. But
yeah, it really does, right? I mean, and I know this is more for a Weird Things podcast, but when I look at the pace of technological advancement, and when I look at, as you said, that what we know as science really only goes back 100 years. Right. Honestly, I mean, what we're using today, what we're developing on, really only goes back a very short time of human existence. And when you look at how the pace is increasing, yeah, you're right. I could actually start looking at something like the singularity and say, it's not science fiction. We're going to get there at some point. We will create some sort of consciousness that's artificial, and it will grow beyond us. I'm again, blown away.
I mean, who's to say, and we've talked about this on Twit before, but who's to say we're not already there? You know, we already have kind of the shared collective conscious memory. This idea. You know, we talked about that. Every time you post a tweet, you're posting an iteration of your personality, an iteration of your thoughts. And you know, with the whole Afterlife Me project that Patrick and I had been talking about, the idea was to take those thoughts and create an echo of you. This very poor simulacrum of what you used to be as a digital ghost. But who's to say that you can't crack the code of because look, I only have like 3 different kinds of jokes. Say I'm dumb, surprising and stupid metaphor, and I don't know, name a name brand or something. And once you crack the code, you can create an algorithm to essentially provide the same level of insights you always did, and it would be kind of a random noise generator. But that's what I am.
You know, Brian, it's almost as if we're sitting here talking, and somehow our consciousness, our thoughts, are shared over a digital medium with people that we've never met in places that we've never seen.
Well, and think about it. That's essentially a one-way version of telepathy. Like right now, you and I are having a virtual convention. We're not in the same room. We're not talking to each other. I'm talking into a stick that's doing magic mojo, and something that sounds like me is happening somewhere else. And yet we're creating this very real thing. This is what's okay. So part of the reason that it makes sense that everything is happening faster and faster, and advances are coming and insights are coming faster than ever is, man, 50 years ago, it just took forever to get anything done. People were writing receipts and filing them. If you wanted to visit and find out how your grandmother was doing, you had to get on a train and spend days to go do it. You would take for a single bit of information, is grandma okay? Yes, no. It could be a 5-day journey to find out and then get back to work doing your other stuff. If you wanted to meet with someone, you had to show up, and there's no parity, there's no checksum on whether or not you're both going to be there at the same time. If something happens and they weren't there, then your only opportunity was to sit around and wait for 4 hours and be like, well, I guess it's not happening today. I'll go back to my city. That whole world, and I grew up on the tail end of it. Like, that whole world is dead. Everything happens so much faster now. We have information redundancy to make sure that less of our time is wasted than at any point in all of humanity. And so many things become possible both because of, travel and technological advancements, but also because of virtualization. The idea that now you can hang out with your friends and skip rocks and jump and dance and play, and also your friends are anywhere in the world, and you're all playing World of Warcraft. You're forging real social bonds, real friendships out of a virtual experience. And to me, all of this just means that you get to spend more time playing, more time challenge yourself, more time doing what you want, and also more thought cycles being spent to advance mankind.
Brave new world, and I love it. Well, this has been kind of high and heavy-handed. How about we just talk about some tech?
Sure. Yes.
Now, Brian, I thought that maybe we might want to take a look at something that I saw over at NAB. I was there this last week at Las Vegas. I found a toy. I found my new techno list. I found the next thing that I actually want to get. You want to take a look?
Yeah.
All right. I'm Father Robert Ballas here, the digital Jesuit with Twit TV at NAB 2014. Now, if you are in production, you've probably heard about DJI. They're the ones who make these wonderful, wonderful drones. In fact, we saw one of the videos created with a DJI drone not too long ago on our channel. Corridor Digital showed their video of what Superman would look like if he were wearing a GoPro. And of course, that GoPro was mounted on the carriage of a DJI drone. This is their second generation drone. Now, there are a few things that they've changed. The first thing is they've dropped the price. This is now $12.99, which is just $100 more than the first generation drone they showed off at CES. Also, they've increased the loiter time to 25 minutes. That means that once you get this up in the air, well, you've got a lot more time to get your shot. A few things that they've done to the electronics, they've included a Wi-Fi range extender, which basically doubles the range to about 700 meters. So you can get this drone far, far away from you, get those really high shots or those far shots if that's what you're looking for. Now, it's not just the platform that they've changed. They've also improved the camera. Underneath the carriage of this drone is a 14-megapixel, fully gyro-stabilized camera. That means that you can use your phone mounted on the top of this controller to tilt back and forth to control the direction of the camera in mid-flight. Also, they've moved the electronics off of the camera itself into the body of the drone, which means that the weight of the camera is not so much that it can't be finely controlled by the motor servos. Now, we've got plenty of footage of this drone in flight from Showstoppers the other day. And in fact, we've got some footage from here in the booth just showing the fine control that they can have of positioning, altitude, longitude, latitude, whatever. Now, the last feature I absolutely think is going to be essential. It's going to become the norm for these types of devices is the GPS home feature. When you get this into an area where it can receive a GPS signal, it knows it's home. Which means that if you lose connectivity, if your controller dies, if somehow the Wi-Fi cuts out, the drone won't plummet and crash or fly out into the ocean. It will actually come back to the position it knows at home. It's a nice thing to do if you want to save your investment. Now, we're going to see more and more of this at NAB 2014, but if you want the gold standard, it's all DJI. Again, I want to thank the people over at DJI for letting me take that drone out because, yeah, I'm pretty sure those shots weren't legal.
Well, actually, I think part of the reason that several reality shows take place in Las Vegas is Las Vegas is the only city where you can, from a production standpoint, rely that there's no expectation of privacy because they, of course, have cameras everywhere, and those are the same people that own the local government. So it's like you don't need releases for anyone in the background of anything you shoot in Las Vegas, which is also probably why, you know, it makes sense for them to premiere it there.
I also think I'm not supposed to fly drones over the Eiffel Tower, though. I think I think they frown on.
I mean,
that.
do you think? I mean, what's the rule on airspace over your house?
Well, we covered this. We covered this a few weeks back because the FCC is currently in a quandary because they cannot classify drones yet. They don't have a good classification for non-commercial drones, and so even though I don't think it was a good thing for me to do to fly this over a heavily populated area, I don't think it was illegal.
Yeah, I don't know either. And plus, I was thinking, I don't know if you heard me say it's a paparazzi's dream because I don't know. Part of the reason, like there are legal precedents that say you do not own the airspace over your place because otherwise you know like a air flight goes over, you're like, I don't like the noise over my property. You're not allowed to go over my property, and then that'd be a nightmare for steering around every person's property or whatever. But that precedent. What does that mean now? Like if you're someone like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, and somebody sends in a drone to hover over and take a peek at your party, what's your recourse there?
You know, this is actually something I really wanted to cover this story with you. You actually saw it in the doc, but I didn't because we were running out of time. But yeah, it's different. Oh, and by the way, yes, chat room, you're right. I said FCC. It's actually the FAA. My bad. But I also meant the FC, all the triple letter agencies. Yeah. But no. Really quickly, let's talk about this. My theory, and please feel free to shoot me down, is we are getting to a point where it's so easy to digitally spy on people. It is so easy to have surveillance equipment. It is so easy to be taped 50 different ways to Tuesday every time you step outside your door that we are getting to a point in society where the only logical thing for you to do is to surveil yourself. Not because of any privacy concerns, but because you want to make sure that you have a unbiased, unfettered, untouched copy of the events as they unfolded if you ever get accused of something. This is what we see in places like Russia and the Philippines that have all those dashboard cameras. The reason why they have those is because that's how they defend themselves. And I know, again, being a libertarian, you probably kind of chafe against the idea of cameras everywhere.
Oh, no, not at all. Because, look, I mean, camera, that's just it, is the dashboard camera is in many ways, unfortunately, it's because there's the corrupt infrastructure of Russia is why people are turning to dashboard cams. But in other words, in the absence of a reliable law enforcement or insurance settling institution, people are coming up with their own solution, which is to record themselves at all time. And I think that's a fine thing. Here's the thing. You could expect not only to see more cameras and to have people backing up their own experiences so that they have a reliable record of what everything was, but you're going to see retroactive forensic analysis of historical stuff. Like there are I don't know, like a voice and analysis to tell who's lying. There's all these different softwares, these programs. And they're already playing games where they're going back looking at historical debates and like, what did he know? When did he know? Yes, we know with whatever level of certainty that this person's lying because of X, Y, and Z. But think about this. Not only do we already at this point have no expectation of privacy with facial recognition technology the moment we leave the house, but retroactively, any event you ever went to where anyone took any picture, like somebody's flashing their top at I don't know. So picture this. All right. So somebody's a congresswoman about to go up for re-election, and 30 years ago she flashed her top at Mardi Gras at some point, and she didn't know a single person there. Not a single person knew her, but enough photos were taken, and enough of those photos got scanned into various whatevers and databases. And the algorithms for facial recognition had gotten advanced enough where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this with a 90% of certainty, this is you flashing your top or whatever, and it becomes this thing. Like I don't know. That's what's amazing is we have run our society under many times the fear that we would be held accountable for everything that we did. Nowadays, that's not a theory. That's not a bedtime story to scare your kids. It's not just the doctrine of every church out there. It is an actual scientific fact without any exaggeration at all, and it's only going to become more true in the next 30 years.
Well, you know, Ryan, sitting here actually in the middle of a studio surrounded by cameras and recording equipment, I don't see that at all being true.
You give it time. Just
it'll settle in. Okay.
Try not for size.
Brian, we've reached the end of Padre's Corner, but I want to thank you so very much for being on. Seriously, it's always fun to be on anything with you. It's fun to do content with you. You're just a genius. You're creative, and I love working with you. So thank you very much. Now tell the folks out there what you want them to know about. You know how this works. Plug away.
Yeah, sure. There's of course, most of you guys know that I host a show called Scam School. They're 10-minute episodes teaching you how to win free drinks at the bar using magic and trickery. That's youtube.com/Scam School, which is really blowing up lately. Scam Schools is we just crossed over 2/3 of 1 million subscribers, which is exciting. And the 3 independent shows that each one couldn't be more different than the others. I love doing all 3. Every Sunday afternoon, we try to do Weird Things with me, Justin Robert Young, and Andrew Main. Mondays nights, it's me and Tom Merritt talking about the changing face of digital media and cutting the cord at Cord Killers. And of course, Night Attack every Tuesday nights. However you spend the rest of your life, every Tuesday night, you can become gods of the internet with me and Justin Robert Young as you join us live for the Chat Realm experience. All of that you can watch live at diamondclub.tv or just Google them. You can find it.
Again, thank you so very much. It's great to see you, and it's great to share the stream again with you once more.
Absolutely. Now we just got to get you on all the other shows. You would be great on Weird Things. We should get you on Weird Things first.
Hey, you know, anything you want me to do, I'll do.
All right.
I'll say that right now.
And vice versa. You name it, and I'm there.
Fantastic. Brian Brushwood, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the school bus. Thank you. Now, remember, folks, that, this is not the only thing I do. You can always find me here on the Twit TV network. I'm actually quite active. But if you don't want to find me on Twit, go ahead and drop by my YouTube site. It's Padre SJ, youtube.com/Padre SJ, where you'll be, and that's not Ali Spagnola, where you will be able to find all of our episodes. Now, we've got a feed coming up, thanks to Patrick Delahunty, but that's not quite ready yet. We need to create a couple of back ends because I don't have time to program around and just sort of pussyfoot. But you're also going to be able to find me here Mondays at 2:30 on This Week in Enterprise Tech. It's a show where we talk about data centers and networking and high-end enterprise class gear. It's a nice way to learn, even if you're not in the enterprise, how the world is connected. On Thursdays, you're going to find me on 2 different shows. At Know How at 11 o'clock a.m., which is a show all about doing it yourself, about making, about creating things, about updating the stuff that you already have. It's a lot of fun. I co-host it with Brian Burnett, Cranky Hippo, in the Twit TV chat room. Also on Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, of course. All times are in Pacific. I'm here for Coding 101. If you've ever wanted to program, if you've ever wanted to learn how these devices, these things go together, well, drop by Coding 101 and you'll be able to learn. Also, you're going to find me here at 7 o'clock Fridays for Padre's Corner. Now, if you want more, please drop by my Twitter account at twitter.com/PadreSJ. And if you follow me, you'll be able to find out what I'm doing each week. You'll be able to suggest topics for future shows, and you'll get little hints on who my guest might be. Now, next week, we've got someone else. I don't want to say who it is because I don't want to give away the secret, but I will say that he was part of NSFW and is part of Night Attack, but he hasn't yet been on Padre's Corner. Yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it. Until next time, thanks to everyone here who made the show possible, to all the engineers for letting me use their gear, to Lisa and Leo for letting me use their studio, and for you for tuning in to Padre's Corner.